Knoxville, Tennessee, deal breakers. In other words, don't move here if you absolutely require these things in order to have a happy and fulfilled life. Let's dive in and get started. Number one, if you are thinking that you're going to come to Knoxville and you're going to easily be able to book an Uber or a Lyft, you are not correct. Yes, Uber does exist. Yes, Lyft does exist. But think about the Uber app. When you land, for example, where did I land most recently? When you land in Vegas, as an example, you go to the Uber app, you've got 15, that's an exaggeration. You've got about 10 different Uber options. You could get the Excel, you could get the Comfort, you could get the Luxury, you could get the ride share, you could get all the things, right? When you go to the Uber app in Knoxville, it's gonna give you two options. Here's my screenshot, Uber X and Uber XL. The regular car or the larger car. And if you go to the Lyft app, you're going to get the same thing. So it's not as if this is like, all access to everywhere all the time. So I want to say that the transportation situation is you need to have a car. You're going to have to drive yourself. This is not a walkable city. And also it's not a hugely Ubered out city. And that being said, there's not a ton of taxis either. Case in point. I think, was it New Year's Eve? It wasn't New Year's Eve. Essentially, we had to have a friend take us home from, Sevierville. We were hanging out, whatever. And we had a friend take us home because we couldn't get an Uber to pick us up. And we thought, it'll be fine. Like it's the new thing these days. No, did not happen. And that was like 11 o'clock at night. So on a weekend. So it should have been, readily available. But also, for example, it takes a long time to get to places. So I think that's part of it too. It's not as if it's not as if in Vegas, Atlanta, Nashville, it's not as if there's a common ride, right? So someone could be landing at McGee Tyson Airport and they're going all the way to Sevierville, and the next person needs to be picked up from Jefferson County, which is an hour the opposite direction. Then you got to drive an hour back to the airport. It wouldn't make sense. And I can say that as an agent. I'm driving all over the place all the time, and things are spread out here. So in one hand, it's it doesn't even make sense. Almost there's not it doesn't make sense, right? So anyways, transportation, you're going to have a plan. It's not like you can last minute go catch a subway. We do have Knox Area Transit, which is a bus line, but even that is pretty limited in service. It's pretty much within the city limits. There are exceptions to that, but it's not as if it's this, you can quickly pop on a bus and be downtown in 5 minutes or less. That's not how that is. So if you require walkability or easy access to main places that you don't have to drive to, it's not going to be for you. Okay. Deal breaker number 2 is Knoxville I would not describe Knoxville as rural, but it's not as if you're going to be in a town with skyscrapers, and which I think this goes without saying, but sometimes people think Knoxville, it's one of the bigger towns in Tennessee. Well, that doesn't mean much, because we still have a number of homes that use septic tanks, and some people think that's literally insane. They're like, what do you mean you have septic tanks? And actually, and it's not even a huge amount, but I just pulled Knoxville itself. 89% of homes listed for sale have public sewer available. So that's 11% that don't. Now, the further out that you get, the more that you're going to see some houses have well water. And the further out you get, you're going to see more houses that are on sewer rather than public, that are on septic tanks rather than public sewer. So it's not necessarily rural, but it is slower than a Washington, D.C. or Nashville or Atlanta or Charlotte even. Charlotte, maybe it's more similar to Charlotte than any of those, but Raleigh's much huger, much more large. So it definitely has a more rural feel than, you know, a big city. So I just want to say that. And then also internet. Some people look at me sideways when I say this, but sometimes the best internet service available is your phone's hotspot or a satellite. Now, Knoxville itself has gotten better about this, but if you're looking at surrounding areas, just consider that the further you get out of Knoxville, the further you get out, the more rural things become, the more likely for septic tanks, the more likely it is that you won't have as many options when it comes to internet service. You can, you know, sometimes also cell service can be spotty. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking like, oh yeah, we would like to be in the mountains. Well, do you require solid internet? Think about that. Now, again, as time goes on, that's going to get better, but I just want to say that this is something to kind of know about. And if it is a deal breaker for you, if you work from home, I have one client specifically, they are looking at super rural properties, but his job, he must have a certain amount of internet speed, and they have yet to find that. 2.5 years now of looking. So they want a certain house in a certain like rural place, but the internet piece of it is not working for them. Okay, so another not so great thing that could be a deal breaker for you about Knoxville is entertainment. And I mean in the sense of like big names, big concerts, stuff like that. This is not somewhere where, for example, like Taylor Swift didn't bring her tour here. Beyonce didn't bring her tour here. Now we do have some entertainment, like Kevin Hart has been here recently. Nate Bargatze, which I know they're not the same, but they're comedians, so they both came to my mind. But like Shania Twain came here this year. Dixie Chicks came here this year. But the big names, they're gonna go to Nashville or they're gonna be in Atlanta. So just keep that in mind. Knoxville is not like known as the internet entertainment capital. We do have a ton of stuff outdoors. We've got a ton of SEC sports. You could probably catch an SEC sport of some kind pretty much throughout the whole year, whether that's football, baseball, basketball, volleyball, softball, rowing, golf. Like you've got all kinds of sports going on, but when it comes to actual like entertainment and, you know, big plays and stuff like that, we do have some of the, you know, Broadway tours that come to the Tennessee Theater. We do have a Knox Symphony Orchestra. So we have some arts going on, but overall entertainment scene, it's not like it's a top 10. This is not an off-Broadway New York mecca for entertainment. And then the stuff that we do have is pretty traditional. Like we do have a string of, you know, Christian artists that come every year. Need to Breathe comes almost every year. Dave Barnes comes. So Amy Grant, Christian pop adjacent, right? So there is entertainment, but it's not, you know, the big names. Like you're gonna have to go to Nashville or Atlanta for those big concerts. All right, travel. This is if you require that your local airport flies internationally, Knoxville is not for you. It just is not. You want to go to Atlanta, Nashville, but there are a total of 12, I'm looking at the map, there are a total of 12 gates at McGee Tyson Airport. And I remember before that, this sounds like I'm an old person, or like when I'm like, back in my day. But seriously, when I go to the airport now, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so nice, because it used to be not be so nice. And I just think it's great now. I love it. I love the airport, but I also love to fly. Like I'm happy with pretty much every airport except Charlotte. Anyways, that being said, McGee Tyson Airport is a regional airport. It is not international. There are 25, as of making of this video, December 2023, non-stop flights, and even those rotate. So for example, like Allegiant flies to Denver. It only flies to Denver certain parts of the year. So there's some different locations like that where they only service that area, again, certain times of the year. Airlines, you've got American, Delta, Southwest, Frontier, Allegiant. Those are, I think that's it. Oh, and United. So it's not like the airport is major. It's not like we have a ton. We're not a hub. We're not an American Airlines hub. We're not a Delta hub. We're not a United hub. That being said, when you are going across the country, you're going to be either routed to Charlotte, routed to Atlanta, or routed to like a Houston or something, depending on where United is taking you, or Nashville. So you're going to connect somewhere. You're not going straight through to, unless you get one of those nonstop flights. But for the most part, wherever you're going, you're going to have a connecting flight, which I know is enough for some people. I have many clients and have many friends that will drive to the Nashville airport in order to avoid a connecting flight. But I love to fly, so I'm like, put me on the connecting flight. You know what I mean? I'm a little wackadoodle that way. But if you need an airport that's going to fly internationally or have an abundance of choices and an abundance of non-connecting flights, it's not for you. And also, if your airport requires more than one restaurant, McGee Tyson is not for you. And I'm not including Starbucks as a restaurant, okay? There's a Ruby Tuesdays, that is the restaurant. There's a Quiznos and stuff, but I mean an actual proper restaurant, there's one of them in the airport. So if you require something like that, where you need a legitimate airport, McGee Tyson is great. It is small. Next up, we have diversity. Knoxville could not be described as a diverse place when it comes to ethnicity. It's not. So 72% white, 16% Black or African American, 3.7% multiracial, 1.68% Asian. So it's see the chart that I provided, but I don't think anybody would describe Knoxville as like an overly diverse place. It is a great place, and I do think it's an inclusive place, but in terms of diversity, it's not here. So that is just something to keep in mind. And I also want to point out that from a socioeconomic perspective, I provided a map that shows basically where income levels live. And so we are kind of segregated by income level when it comes to like where the rich people are, where the high income people are, I should say, or the highest income people are pretty much positioned in West Knoxville. So I just wanted to show that as well, that there is some like economic segregation based on income. So anyways, check out that data that I provided. Politics, you can see this. These are obviously specific to the state, but I wanted to show you the trajectory of voting, presidential voting, over the course of history, and then also what's happening with senators. And what you're seeing is that we have a large history of republicanism, if I can just say it that way. And then also, if you look at like current U.S. state representatives, pretty much all red, all Republican, with the exception of representatives in Memphis being Democratic. So, I mean, certainly there is a Republican slant. If you look at the 2020 election in the state of Tennessee, you see that. If you look at the representatives across the state, you see that as well. So from a political and just socioeconomic and diversity standpoint, Tennessee and Knoxville in general kind of lacking. And that's why if you go to niche.com, for example, and you look at our schools, a lot of our schools are rated poorly in the area of diversity because there's just, for lack of a better way to say this, white people. So anyways, that is just, knowing about the area and who's here. So if maybe those are deal breakers for you, maybe they're not deal breakers for you. And one that I didn't mention, I kind of mentioned, but didn't go a deep dive on, is kind of that same thread about getting around town. Is Knoxville is not a walkable city. It's not walkable. There are certain pockets of places where you could live where you could certainly not have a car. If you were downtown, just as an example, you could probably not have a car down there. There's a neighborhood in West Knoxville. It's called North Shore Town Center. And you could walk to the Target, walk to the Publix. There's Publix. There's several restaurants there. So you could, work from home from there and then also get everything you needed within walkable distance. But it's not as if Knoxville is walkable friendly. And I don't even think personally Knoxville is bike friendly. I do know some people that bike, but I also do know that some people here in Knoxville are like, oh, why are you on a bike on the road? You should be on the sidewalk, which is not true, which we know that's not safe. But, we're a little bit behind in those areas. So I hope this has been informative for you. I hope that if you have questions, as always, reach out. And if this has been informative, I would love for you to subscribe. I've got so much more to tell you. I'm Haley Jones, and I'll catch you on the next video.